what makes things difficult to operate in a team is fear. We fear being blamed or criticized. That's just a very natural thing that humans fear. We fear blame and criticism because it's deeply rooted in us. If we were criticized or blamed as part of an ancient tribe, we would be exiled. And if we were exiled, we'd be killed. And so we're walking around trying to not get blamed and criticized. And we're willing to do a lot to not do that. And so what helps with that is the development of what a lot of thinkers call psychological safety. And what that means basically is creating an environment in which I feel that I can say what's on my mind and I won't be criticized. If that environment doesn't operate, I mean, one of the biggest, learning about this is aircraft disaster. Almost every aircraft disaster results in a missing of particular data, and oftentimes it's because a junior person has said, "Hey, listen, is something going wrong here?" But doesn't feel enough confidence, enough psychological safety to be able to really call out and say, "Hey, wait, this is going the wrong way." And so what I found to be helpful for that, and what most thinking is creating experiences for people in which they can actually simply share who they are. Now, the trick to this is that once you start to do that, it seems really corny. So you got to find a way to do it that works. What I found to be like really helpful there is to create an environment where people can actually just talk about what their experience has been. So I think the first step to that is what like the Navy SEALs do is after they have an operation, they come back and they debrief. They talk about like, okay, this is what I saw, this is what I felt. And so that's a very basic way that people can do it. But I mean, leading up to higher ways is which where people share more about what's going on in their lives.
Can you give us an example of a question you might use to set that up? Because it might be a nice way to finish it. People can go and start this conversation themselves. Like we kind of played around at the start of Jason, how'd you meet Fader? And how did I meet Fader? And like a little bit personal. Are you talking about that or are you talking about going deeper?
Well, I think you have to start wherever people are comfortable. So I'll give you an example. I mean, one exercise I've done with teams is where I have people, shout out what they saw other people do well. Because we're so focused on, as Jason and I talk about, if something goes wrong, we talk about it endlessly. This is true in football or in fire department. If something goes wrong, there's like, if something goes wrong on a football team, as you know, working with the Eagles and my experience with the Giants, the team's going to watch tape for like the entire week. If something goes right, we don't spend a lot of time like thinking about why it went right. And so I think just having a group where people sit around after a particular event and say like, "Hey, this is one thing I think that went well. This person did this." That's an example of developing psychological safety because your team members all of a sudden realize, "Oh shoot, like that person saw me and respected me and valued me." There's this kind of joke like in a lot of locker rooms where people say, like if someone says, "I love you," it's kind of like, "I love you, F you, man." Like there's uncomfortability with that, right? But finding a way to point out like what we see that's positive can actually help to build that trust and connection.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things I think that teams can do to develop that and think about how that can be done based on what level of comfort is with that particular unit or group.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned culture at the start, Jason, like you say, not many people put a lot of thought into how it develops, but definitely locker room cultures in the old days, you would get to know people and get that vulnerability and acceptance through drinking games and through stories that were told out at night and all that sort of stuff. Is there any parallels to that in military or fire where there is a cultural development of those relationships, or does it need to be more intentional?
I think the fire service has a leg up on the military in this regard because the military, everyone's almost in a perpetual state of motion, right? You go to a unit, you're there for 2 years, you move on, you get a new commander, you get a new sergeant major. I mean, you're just constantly in flux. Whereas in a firehouse, you tend to be there for several years. I mean, it's kind of like probably more consistent with what pro sport was before the explosion in free agency, right? Where you would kind of be with the same team and the same teammates. And then you also develop some meaningful relationships oftentimes outside of work, right? You have social events, your wives come, your kids grew up together, and you're kind of navigating the challenges. Like multiple guys are kind of navigating pregnancy, right? Their wives are pregnant at the same time. They bring kids into this world at the same time. They're coming to work sleep deprived at the same time. But I think one of the best ways to get people to be more vulnerable with each other, because I think that's really, in essence, what Fader's speaking to. And that's really tough in tactically minded elite organizations where people pride themselves on being tough, right? Is to just get people outside their comfort zone. And sometimes it comes in the form of training. Sometimes it comes in the form of a weekend camping expedition. Sometimes it comes in the form of doing a tough mudder or a Spartan race. Because when you do something of that nature, you're going to quickly find like that no one is strong across the board. That's true in all elite teams. That's true for guys in rescue too. That's true for guys in the SEAL teams. It's certainly true for guys in the Marine Corps infantry. Like you're going to quickly identify where people's strengths and weaknesses are. And quickly in those moments of discomfort, you become increasingly reliant on those around you. And the reality is like, you can't hide it. Right? I mean, we've all been guilty sometimes of kind of hiding it and hoping our inadequacies wouldn't surface. And then we often run the risk sometimes of overcompensating for it, and we quickly get called out for it. But I think everything comes down to like connection and relationships. Like once we have a relationship, I mean, Fader and I are able to have like really thought-provoking conversations where we challenge each other, both professionally and personally, because we kind of know we're operating in a safe space. We have a really, really strong relationship and connection, and we just seek for each other to be better versions of ourselves. And I think we're probably more aware of each other's blind spots than many other people that we know are. And we benefit from that.
It reminds me of a mentor of mine back in Australia who first probably set me on this path. And we were working with elite teams, and he said, you know, the bit we were talking about, what's the difference between a great team and an okay team? He said, here's the real deal. The most elite teams, like the highest performing environments, are absolutely brutal when it comes to accountability and absolutely loving when it comes to care. And they both exist at the same time, because that means you can be brutal without anyone feeling butthurt or running away. So they're able to get better faster and hold higher standards.
Years ago, I would have said that the key from like social sciences, behavioral sciences, in terms of resources to taking teams, great teams and great performers to the next level, lied in neuroscience, cognitive psychology, etc. Now I'm of the belief it actually lies in like emotional and social intelligence, right? It's like the guys like the Dan Coyles out there, right? Like folks that help us to gain a better understanding of just how important those aspects of performance, of really connection, are to make us even better performers.